Hey guys, Ramathlatol, Michael. I don't think I've ever actually said my name before. Anyway, I finally got started on doing the paper clay. And I thought I'd give you guys kind of like a rundown on what's going on, show you how the paste is made and the actual clay itself is made, all the way up to making skulls. Getting up to this process, though, has been a pain in the backside. A lot of trial and error, because I've never worked with paper clay before. Now, I tried several different recipes on making my paper, and several different ways of doing the paper clay with what I've been doing. I figured I'd show you some of my results so you can kind of gauge it yourself. Get turned around here. This one here is my first attempt. What I ended up using for a glue was white glue and water, and the clay that came out was kind of like a half-cooked watery sausage type consistency, and I really didn't like it too much. Plus it uses a ton of white glue, and that stuff gets a little bit too expensive. So I ended up doing another one last night. I found a recipe over on silicone.com for doing how he does his paper clay, and I used his mixture last night, and I ran into some other problems. These are the ones I made up last night, and they're a little rough. There's some dings and dents and everything, and the problem I was having was the releasing agent for my molds. You know, I showed you these molds, you know, a couple of times after I got them made, and what I originally planned on doing was coating the insides with Vaseline and then packing the clay in there and then pulling it right out. The problem is with using the Vaseline, I found you pack it in there, you can't get them out right away because the clay is so soft. When you go to pull them out, you end up getting damage and stuff to them, so you need to let them set for, I let these actually set, those there actually set for about 6 hours with a hairdryer on them, and they were still very soft, very malleable. And there's just so much clay there, it takes forever for them to dry. So I really didn't like that overly. I didn't like that result overly much. So I got to thinking today of different ways of creating my own releasing agent, and found one that works great. But what I ended up doing is I went down to the grocery store, I bought saran wrap, I bought aluminum foil, and I bought some of that spray-on stuff that you use like on baking dishes to keep stuff from sticking, to give those a try, to see how that would work. Actually used, let's see, where was it? I don't think I kept any of them. I tried the spray-on stuff on these little skulls here, and these aren't the ones, these are made with my final one that I chose, and it didn't turn out too bad. I still had to dig them out though, and some of them were damaged. I got to looking at the aluminum foil. Aluminum foil I could pack into the mold, inside the molds and everything. Problem was I would have gotten all the creases from the aluminum foil and everything else, and I did not like that either. So what I ended up settling on was cellophane, you know, cling wrap, or, you know, plastic wrap, whatever you want to call it, and I just lay that down, you know, without the wrinkles on it, over the mold, take my clay and press it into it, and then when I'm done I can just pick up, grab the edges of the saran wrap and just lift the clay right out, and it's got the impression. I set it off to the side and dry, and that way I can just sit there and just keep making the same skull over and over and over and over again. That's the process I ended up using, and I did a test run this morning. That was my first run using the clean wrap, and as you can see, you can't really see details overly much on these, and this paper clay needs to be painted. But, you know, some of them stick out pretty good. The ones I like are this style. This style here really looks nice. Now, I did do one of the larger skulls. I'm going to need to indent the nose a bit. You know, and I got some smaller skulls made. I did up a bone. Another thing I made up, too, and I've got to get a hold of Steve on this one, I made up a kitty. Chris and Steve have been talking a lot about Halloween tree ornaments. And let's see, where are they? Here they are. I was out after Halloween, and they had some clearance items of some cookie cutters. And I bought, and there's 8 or 9 different shapes in there. So I took some of the leftover paper clay and used the kitty cat one and made that kitty cat. Now I've got some colored ribbon out in my shop. In fact, here's the kitty cat that I use. Put it down on the table so you can see it better. But I've got some colored ribbon out in my shop, and I was thinking if I took those cookie cutters, filled them about halfway full, then took some of the ribbon and tied the ends together so it's a loop with a knot, lay it in there on top of the half-filled cookie cutter, and then filled it the rest of the way up so the knot on that loop is inside the clay. Make some good Halloween tree ornaments, and then you could paint them, whatever desire you want, or detail them or what have you. Nice thing about this paper clay also, and I just thought of it, I hadn't even thought of it before, is if you have that Dremel tool and take the etching bit for it, once this stuff dries, you can actually go through and etch it out and add extra detail and stuff to it, if you want to do that much work. But anyway, that's the project I'm working on, and I'm going to run you guys through the steps on how to make the paste, how to mix up the cellulose into the paste to get the clay, and how I'm doing the molding process. I'm not going to get too much into the molding process, but these are the skulls I'm currently working on, and I've got about 8 or 9 different styles. I've only made up a couple so far, and I'll show you guys some more of them later on once I get more finished and stuff, and after they've been cleaned up. Probably be a couple of weeks. But anyway, that's what I'm working on currently, so I shall talk to you later. Hope you enjoy the video. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Hey guys, I wanted to show you the process for making the paper clay paste that I'm using in my latest project. It's a combination of 5 different things all together. We use, the recipe calls for 6 cups of flour, which I have pre-measured out in the bowl already. We need 1 cup of white glue, which I bought by the gallon jug. Liquid cornstarch, and actually go like that way, you don't need to see the label. Liquid cornstarch. On that, I made that, I found a recipe online to make it at home. I checked several craft stores and whatever, they had it for the gallon jug. It was like $3 to $4 for a gallon jug of it. I found you could go down to the grocery store and buy powdered cornstarch for like $2 and just make it up yourself. And a box of cornstarch will do about 5 or 6 gallons for like $2. It's just time consuming having to make it. The other ingredient is joint compound, which I got down at Lowe's, which was about $13. The white glue was also about $13. The other ingredient for this is water. So that's what we're going to be drawing now, and the water you want to use is warm tap water with this. Warm. Of course, what's warm to me and what's warm to you might be a bit differently. Anyway, the process for the mixture is you take 6 cups of flour and then add 1 cup of white glue. And for any of those worried about messes and stains and whatever, all the ingredients here are water soluble. They clean up with water. If you spill paste on your shirt or pants or whatever, fabric of any kind, as long as you get into the water before it sets up, it'll come right out. Once it dries, I don't know about. I've been trying to get things washed right off the bat. Anyway, there's 1 cup of glue. And then 1 cup, and I always mix this up. I always do the glue first because the glue coats the cup. And I can put the other cornstarch in there, stir it around, and it gets the extra glue out. Anyway, almost 1 cup's worth. There we go. 1 cup of liquid cornstarch. Joint compound does not get added until later. That's the very last step you do. Right now you want to get your paste mixed up. And then I'm going to pour in just part of this water. It's a 4 cup measuring cup. I'm only going to pour in part of it. You won't need all of it. And then you can use an electric hand mixer. And like I was saying, everything is water soluble. So when you're done, you can rinse out your bowl, your mixers and stuff. And you shouldn't have a problem. Get this all mixed up here. The consistency that you're going for is you want a watered down, you want it to be the thickness of a wheat pancake batter, kind of watered down. You just simply keep adding warm tap water and keep mixing until you get to that consistency and all the lumps are gone. You definitely want all the lumps gone out of this. Right now it's about the consistency of cake batter. I'm being stared at. My wife's gonna watch me. She thinks I'm a fool for doing this. Actually, I should have had her doing this. She's the baker in the household. She knows more about mixing this type of stuff up than I do. And she probably would come in and do it as long as I turn the camera on. As you can see, it's still a little thick. A little bit more water. Now, when you're doing this, like I said, it needs to be a thin pancake batter. You don't want it overly thick. If you're just going to have to mess with it on your own to get the desired thickness, that you want. And I should mention the recipe I am using to make this paper paste. The paper clay. I got it off of silicone.com. This is actually his recipe that I got. If there's anyone interested in a copy of the recipe, let me know. Either in the comment section down below the video, and I can email it over to you along as well as the recipe to make homemade liquid starch, which is extremely easy and really, really quick. So, okay. Right now, I don't know if you can see it, but we got about the right consistency. Yeah, right consistency. And as you can see, I splattered a whole bit. So, anyway, that's stage 1. The next step is we need to add joint compound to the mixture, and the recipe up on stellacum.com said 1 cup of joint compound for every 6 cups of paste. The amount of flour and everything, I'm finding it comes up to about 8 to 9 cups of paste altogether, and I'm actually putting in a little bit more joint compound than what the recipe calls for. I like the thickness of it that way, and it seems to work a lot better. So I'm going to be, at least for what I'm doing with it. So what I'm going to be doing is adding about a cup and a half to 2 cups of joint compound to the paste mixture. There's 1 cup. Get the cup cleaned off. Here's joint compound, and it's just a little bit more than half a cup. Okay, add that to the sink and that can be washed up. Now we got the joint compound in, it's just a matter of mixing it again. And keep mixing it until all the lumps are out. The joint compound will actually thicken it up a little bit. Okay, joint compound's all mixed up. Now, what I do at this stage of it, because I don't want to mix into this bowl, and I don't know if you guys notice the bowl or not. That's actually our candy dish from the Haunted Tents. It's the only bowl big enough because I wanted to make up a super duper batch, and I was a little nervous about using the wife's good mixing bowls. But anyway, I just put a small bucket up here. What I'm using the bucket for is my mixing. The paper clay I'm making is using cellulose insulation, which I'll show you in a little bit, added to this mixture to make a clay. So I don't mix it up in the bowl. I just pour this into the bucket and then mix everything up in the bucket. So now you can see here the thickness of it. It is, once you add the joint compound, it's pretty much the thickness of a good cake batter, which is just about perfect. So anyway, that's all there is to the paste, and as you can see, it didn't take too long to make the paste up. I'm going to sit there and let that drip a little bit. So anyway, that's how you make paper clay paste. Okay guys, we're back. Just got done doing the paste. Showed you the recipe. Like I said upstairs, if anyone would like the recipe either for the paste or for the recipe for making your own liquid starch, please make a comment down below. You know, I gotta follow Troy and Steve. They're always pointing when they want you to comment or subscribe or what have you. But you comment down below, and I'll send you. I'll type up a copy of it for you and send it over to you. As you saw upstairs, it's not really hard to make. Other than all the ingredients I listed upstairs, another thing I highly recommend for this project is going down and buying yourself a box of gloves, okay, the disposable type. If you don't, your hands are going to get awfully gooey and awfully sticky very quick. So I'm going to get these gloves on. You know, I don't know, probably not. I remember the old-fashioned latex gloves. You could blow them up like a balloon. Used to have fun at parties with those. They were good for other things too, but I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, how long will it take him to get his gloves on? Probably several days. You know, day of hand. Well, that explains that. Now the backwards helps if you put it on correctly. No comment. Yes, folks, my mind's in the gutter and I'm trying to be a good boy. I apologize. There we go. Okay, we have our paste here in our mixing bowl. What we are using to make the paper clay is paper, or actually it's cellulose. What it is, as you can see here, is cellulose insulation I bought down at our lumber yard, and it's basically shredded paper. All sorts of shredded paper, notebooks, newspapers, what have you. And what you want to do is just start adding cellulose insulation to your container that holds the paste. And it takes a little bit of time. And by the way, the bags the cellulose comes in, so it's cellulose insulation. It's a 25-pound bag. When I went down, I wasn't sure how far a bag was going to go. So I bought 3 bags of the stuff. I've made up 5 different batches so far, you know, trying different recipes, what have you. I haven't even gone through a quarter of a bag yet. You know, this stuff goes a long way. Okay, now what I'm doing is, you notice, I've got one hand outside the bucket, one hand inside the bucket doing the mixing. Reason for that is I don't want to get the paste into the bag of cellulose. So I'll use this hand for adding and use this hand here for doing the mixing. And it does take a little bit to get this mixed up. You need to get mixed up thoroughly. Just keep adding cellulose insulation to the mix of paste until you get nice, stiff, workable concoction. I like it. Oh, I want it to be kind of like clay. You know, you just keep mixing until you get that clay consistency. You know, like the clay you used to mess with, not Play-Doh, but the orange clay you used to play with in school. You know, make ashtrays and stuff out of. Art projects, that's about what you want. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this down on the floor because it's kind of hard to mix up on the table here, so it's going to be out of view for a moment. I'm just going to sit here and keep adding cellulose insulation to the mix until I get the consistency I want. Another thing too, as powdery as this insulation is, you might want to wear a dust mask during this stage of it, so you're not doing like I'm doing right now, breathing in all the fumes. You know, especially if you've got asthma or something like that. So make sure to pick up a dust mask. I'm not wearing a dust mask now because I'm talking into the camera, and normally I don't have my head right over it like this either. I'm trying to stay within camera angle, so I might have added just a hair too much cellulose insulation because this is an awfully dry mixture. But we'll see here. Gonna keep mixing. Make sure you get into all the corners real good. You know, depending on what type of container you're mixing it in. I do suggest using buckets like this, you know, instead of good bowls and stuff. You know, just in case things get knocked over, you drop them or what have you. There we go. Now you do want to be careful and not do like I think I just did and add too much cellulose insulation. More insulation you add to it, the stiffer it gets, and it's harder to work with, depending on what you're doing. Okay, there we go. This is what you end up with. It's what your paper clay will look like. And so this batch is a very stiff mix. So get that out of the way. Now, I already showed you guys in an earlier video what I am going to be using this paper clay for. Or actually, I need to tell you what we're going to be using it for. But I showed you the plaster of Paris molds I made. And let's see, I'm going to pick out one mold here. We'll do these here. I like to look at these. Now, if you notice, I've got cellophane over the top of the mold. I'm using the cellophane as my releasing agent. And I'll go a little bit more into the releasing agent a little bit later. Actually, I could probably go into it right now. Originally, when I was making this, I needed something when you're working with a glue, basically, paper mache glue, and I'm forcing it into molds. You want to make sure you're able to get your item out of the mold, okay, after you get done casting it. And you need to put some sort of residue or resin or something slippery enough that will allow you to put the clay into the mold and then take it out again. So you set it off to the side and dry and reuse the mold. You can leave it just sit in the mold and set it off to the side, but it takes about a week, you know, depending on how hot it is. If you leave it at room temperature, it takes about 4 days, 5 days. You know, maybe a little bit longer depending on your climate and how much humidity you got for this stuff to dry. And you know, I don't want to leave it sitting in the mold that long because I want to be able to make, you know, more. I don't want to have to make one of something, wait 4 days, make another one, and what have you. I want to be able to just keep making. So I needed a releasing agent that would allow me to pop this right out of the mold when I was done. I messed around with several different things, 2 different types of glue. The first type of glue I made was, the recipe was just water and white glue. You mix it up and made your clay, put it into a mold, you know, and then let it dry. I didn't like the look of how that came out. Now what I'm doing is I've put the cellophane into the mold first, and then I am packing the paste, not the paste, but the clay then made up into the mold on top of it. And now I'm kind of just going through and scraping across the top of it, trying to remove some of the excess. You don't want too much clay. What I am trying to do is I want this kind of level flat with the top of the mold. So it's kind of a process where you overfill it and you kind of pack it in and then you scrape it out. Okay, now once you get to this stage, it's ready. I can take it right back out using the cellophane. That's why I decided to do the cellophane. Okay, there we go. And it just pops it right out. You turn it over, and there's my skull. One skull complete. Eek. Now you'll notice on the outside of this there's some flanging and stuff. I'm going to be cutting that off. I'll wait till it dries all the way. I'll cut it off. Another nice thing too is while this is in this stage here, you just pull it out of the mold. If there are any details like the nose or around the eyes or anything that didn't come quite right, you can add those by hand. You're using a stick or trowel or carving tools and add detail to the skulls. For me, I'm going to leave them kind of like this. I don't want a crisp, clear crisp, clear impression of the mold. I want these for the project I'm doing to look like stone or rock, you know, or worn down rock. So I don't want the features of the mold to be really sharp and crisp. I want them kind of phased out and blurry so they look like they've been worn. But anyway, that's how I'm doing the doing my molds, and that's just one skull. I've got about 5 or 6 different styles here. But at this point here, you can put them on a cookie sheet, just set them off, or some sort of sheet. Set them off to the side somewhere for about 4 days and let them dry. If you don't want to wait 4 days for them to dry, another trick you can do too is you can put them on a cookie sheet and then set your oven for the lowest setting. You don't want to go up too high and catch it because it says paper and glue. You don't want to catch it on fire. But set your oven for your lowest temperature and then just pop them into the oven, you know, for a couple of hours. That will help speed up the drying on them. Make sure you check them regularly though if you're going to do that to make sure they don't burn. But you could, you know, put them in for like about an hour, let them heat up, dry a bit, pop them out. Let them cool down to room temperature, and then repeat the process. Put them back in for about another hour and pull them out. And that would, you could probably get them dry in about a day doing it that way. Just make sure you monitor it real well. But anyway, there's my skull, and I've got plenty more to do. So anyway, that's how we're doing it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk with you a bit later.